All right, everybody, welcome back to NickTalks. Oh, feels good to do a video. I haven't done one in a while. I mean, they've been coming out, but I just recorded a whole bunch and then scheduled them, and then yesterday did a first guest podcast. So be on the lookout for that. I mean, it'll have come out before this video does, but if you haven't seen it, check it out. I'm very excited about it. But it feels good to get back in the flow. So. Hope everyone's doing great. Thank you for tuning in. Not too much to note here. I got an organizer here, and then I have another desk over here that I put. I guess you can kind of see it over there. A little printer table that has a power cord and all that stuff on it. So upgrades, baby, upgrades. That's what we're talking about. So with that being said, we will jump right into the content here. So, first off, this kind of goes in with, I believe, the last solo video that I did, talking about scheduling your time and how you learn and things like that and how to be intentional. But kind of contrary to that point, I think it's also important to schedule time to do nothing. Now, what I mean by that is it's really easy to get caught up in the race of improvement, and it becomes, actually I was talking to the guest about this, sort of an addiction, where you're so addicted to getting things done that it's hard to stop and reel back and just take time for yourself, and which is absolutely beneficial. I mean, spending time with yourself is how you know yourself, and that's how you build confidence and charisma and just understanding who you are and what you want. And, where the difficult thing about this, as, I've mentioned plenty of times now, is striking a balance between doing something and doing nothing. Because, it's like this work-life balance that isn't always so easy to nail. And you don't want to get caught too much in the doing something that you forget to enjoy life. But you also don't want to get caught up too much in the doing nothing and you forget to do something. So I think it's really important to try and implement some time for you where you really just enjoy the moment, and maybe, if you like movies, you watch a movie by yourself. If you like reading, you read by yourself. It's non-educational, it's nothing to do with your goals, it's nothing to do with self-improvement or stimulating your intellect or learning new things or talking to family or anything. It's just purely for you. And I really do think that this is important and something that I've tried to implement more now. And sometimes I still have a difficult time with it. But I noticed that, one, the difficulty comes from the fact that I never spend time alone. I never spend time just doing things that I like only with myself, because it seems kind of odd as a concept, like going to see a movie by myself or going out and going out to eat by myself. It's like you have a relationship there as well that you can't neglect, because then everything is just outward and you don't know how to be alone. It's kind of in the same vein as this whole don't listen to anything and schedule time where you don't have any noise so that you can understand yourself. Very similar thing, although you don't have to be silent. You don't have to have only silence. You can listen to music or whatever you like, and just kind of enjoy the comfort of your own company. And I think that, I kind of harp a lot on pushing forward and getting better and ways to improve. But I think that this is also important and is going to, double down on this effect. And it's easier, or at least I think it's easier going back in now that you've taken time for enjoyment, because, you're not thinking about like, man, I wish I was doing something else, because you've already done the thing that you wish that you were doing, right? So just, kind of internalize that a little bit and play around with it. Like even vacations. I think that I've started to come to the understanding that it's important to schedule regular vacations. I've had the idea of doing it quarterly, but then keeping those vacations to 2 or 3 days. so that it's a nice break where you can let your mind free itself of the bonds of productivity and just enjoy life. But it's not too long to where you start thinking like, man, I'm really doing nothing. It's like when you take an extensive break and you're like, start feeling guilty and you're not pushing forward and stuff like that. And part of that, the whole addiction bit, is I noticed that when I'm really on top of my game and I'm like ironing out everything and there's very little problems that pile up because I'm so proactive about solving them, or as soon as they do pop up, I get on it immediately instead of procrastinating. It's easy for me to, when I do take a day off just for myself and I don't worry about my goals, that when I come back, I'm now thinking of, wow, that was 24 hours or so that I could have spent moving the ball forward, moving the needle. And that kind of highlights the compulsion that comes with any habit, I think, where it's easy to get sucked into what you're doing and how you're doing it and, paying attention to all the details and whatnot, that you can't even enjoy the moment for what it is. And that's where the benefit comes, is that when you take this time, I believe anyways, that you now can enjoy when you have time away from your productivity. Any rituals that you have, you can just kind of take a break, not too long because you don't want to fall out of habit with what you're doing. But when you get there, just try and focus your mind on not going to the workspace. And because even if I'm relaxing, I'll find myself thinking about work, or I'm thinking about the videos, or I'm thinking about the book, or any of these things, or training, or anything. And it takes away from the present moment. And so this kind of, if you can build it into your schedule, like right now I have 2 days off, and I would like one of them to be just complete relaxation. And then one of them to be like hardcore productivity, where I'm getting everything done that I can't get done during the work week. But it teaches you to enjoy the moment for what it is and not let things slip by the wayside just because you haven't learned to focus on just having a good time, And I think that I have very little social contact now, especially now that I'm away from everyone that I know, and new people that I meet I just don't quite bond with because of the culture here and whatnot, and just that difference in conscious level. I mean, like, I can spend time with people, but it's not going to be doing the things that I would do with myself or my partner or my friends. And so taking this time is slowly teaching me to really embrace when I do have time that is not being spent productive. And so that way I can enjoy both. It's a more well-rounded approach. So that way that I love working and I love pushing towards my goals, but I also love relaxing from that and taking the time to just enjoy life and, stop and smell the roses and really just, just take a breath and relax. Because at the end of the day, it's all just a big game. It's all just, not, that doesn't make it less serious, right? But it's all something that should be enjoyed. You have to enjoy the process. And if you get too caught up in the play that you're acting in, you forget that you're an actor, and then now all of a sudden it's reality, right? So just think about that and try and dial it back. And also, I feel that doing so, taking a specific amount of time for yourself, alleviates I guess I kind of already said this, but to expand on it, it alleviates the mind wandering to what you want to do instead of the work that you're doing, right? And so that way you can truly be present in whatever you're doing because you're scheduling time for all these tasks. And I'm sure you can take that lesson and that concept into many different places. But if you have a specific time where you do this, you only think about it and do it in that time, right? Like if I'm, I have my work from this hour to this hour, I'm only thinking about work maybe right before that and during. But when I get home, it's done. It's done. I'm not thinking about that anymore. Now I'm home. If I'm working on a video outline or recording, I'm only thinking about that. I'm not thinking about what I want to eat later, or what I want to do next weekend, or planning my next training session. I'm thinking about what I'm doing right now because I have scheduled different times for when that is to be completed. And then you could take time where you're just kind of dreaming about what you want to get done, but just you know learn. It's like I said, a relationship. It's like dating yourself and finding out what you really like, and what makes you laugh, and what you think is funny and what you think is not funny, and what you believe, and where you want to go, the kind of food you enjoy, the music you like to listen to when you're by yourself. You know, yeah, I have draw a candle at bath, smoke a cigar, do a face mask, drink some wine, enjoy a movie alone. So just thinking about, like, put the same amount of effort that you would put into organizing an event with someone else or multiple someones, and put that same effort into what you would do with yourself. And so I think, conceptually anyways, because I'm not sure that I've really ironed out this process enough to speak on it in terms of my own experience. I'm just now starting to really try and embrace the idea of relaxing completely. Usually I like swimming in these things. But I'm finding that there really is a lot of things that I don't know about me that I would like to know. When I'm out and someone says something and I'm like, ha, and then I realize, like, that was kind of a fake laugh. And then it's like, what do I find funny? And then just you don't know, because you have to learn these things about yourself. You have to learn where you like to go and what you like to do and how you like to spend your time. And the only way to do that is by doing it. So, kind of take that in. Let me know what you think about that, and if it, dude, come on now, chair's slipping. Let me know if it helps at all, and then also don't use it as an excuse to shirk your duties just because I need a special day for me, right? Okay, but are you also, like, on the ball all the other days when it's not for you? Maybe you haven't even quite earned the right to give yourself that time because you're not on everything. And so the more accountable you are in every other aspect, the more you earn the right to just take time for you, I believe, anyways. Right? Cool. So moving on, I have learned to delete useless information and keep your mind clear and concise to prioritize access to useful information. And off the bat, you can ask the question, what is useful information? And that is a decision that you have to make. That is something that you have to, for example, I like to, as I'm sure I've mentioned a plethora of times, I like to really broaden my spectrum of study so that I know a lot about a lot, or at least a little about a lot. And I think that has a lot of boosts in charisma and conversation and communication and things like that. It just makes me a more rounded individual so that I can communicate with wider groups of people at length, comfortably. But very recently, I texted my friends about, hey, I just heard this new thing. I wonder what you think about it. And they started asking a lot of questions. And then I realized there was a lot of things that I didn't know. And it was kind of outside of my normal bounds of what I pay attention to. And I realized, like, how much it was going to take for me to be proficient enough to talk about it. And it just struck me immediately. It was like, I don't want to do that. And I just don't want to take up that space. And the same goes for politics. There was a time when I was really getting deep into trying to understand how politics works, like this mechanism, this machine of policy, and really understanding the ins and outs. And then, like, halfway through, I realized that it was just taking up so much room and so much processing power that could be spent on things that actually better my life. And so that's just my own personal priority system of the things that I want to learn the most are the things that I can take and apply to my life and make it better. And then maybe in doing so can teach others or tell others or, guide others in that concept or, whatever. And so I'm starting to develop this understanding that, I guess not even starting to develop. I think it's a pretty common thing that you only have so much free storage in your mind, and especially upfront memory that you can immediately access without long thought. And I think that it's growing, especially more with as I get deeper into topics, that it's more important for me to keep space clear so that I can focus more on what I really want to know. And a great analogy that I have for this is that I've never watched sports, right? Like I just didn't. I didn't even have TV when I was really young, and so I never really saw any games. And my friends weren't really the most athletic or into sports or anything like that. And so by the time I was, 12, 13 years old, I just never had grown an interest in sports. And then now when I hear people talk about any sport, I hear them rattling off names and numbers and player stats and weights and dates and teams and coaches and where the teams are, states, cities, countries, all these things. You know, this long, what shoes they wear, what equipment they wear, the shoes that the players are building on their own, and all these things. And as I'm learning about this or seeing this, it's like, dude, that is so much stuff that I don't know, and it benefits my life at zero capacity, right? And I talked to my friend about this, and he's like, yeah, well, you don't know more, you just don't know shit about sports. And maybe there's some truth to that, but I think really it comes down to, like, I can access almost anything that I've done or seen or read or heard immediately, because I don't have all this useless information that doesn't help me in any way, shape, or form to clog up these gears, right? Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't watch sports. You like sports, right? I just don't necessarily find the appeal. And that's just my look here. So maybe for you, it's something completely different. Maybe it's movies. You just never really got into movies, and so you don't know any actors, you don't know any studios, you don't know any directors, right? Now, I know these things because I'm interested in them. But the point being is learn to kind of guide your attention so that you don't just fill in gaps of useless information that you're not going to use, and memorizing things that are not important. And like kind of like a Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle thing, maybe Bell even, talking about the brain attic and how you have to stock it with furniture that in a specific way that makes sense. And I think that that's really important to kind of think of it as a library. Like your mind is your library, and to build it in a way and become familiar with it in a way that you have immediate access to all the information that is important to you, and anything else is then stored long term or booted out shortly after. And so maybe it's not as grandiose or cinematic as deleting information, but I think that if you can find a method for actually deleting information, like, is this thing that I know important to me? No, then forget about it. Just completely write it out, right? I think that that's a really important thing to do to keep your mind clear, especially as you become more focused in a specific field, right? Or a specific journey or whatever. I don't have to write any training plan or record any of my sets in terms of weight or reps or anything, because I remember all of it. I remember every single detail of the workouts that I do, and I'm up to date on where I am and where I've been. And maybe I don't have like a day-to-day progression, but that's not really important to me to be able to cycle back through. But I can remember at least broad points. Like, I know what my maxes were, reps and set and weight wise, in high school. Like, I still remember these things. And so that's, I believe, simply because I don't spend all this time focusing on things that aren't important to me. And I think part of that comes also with lowering the priority of entertainment in your system. Like, I used to love movies so much, and I still do, but I don't focus as much on movies and what's going on because it's just not quite relevant. It's like video games. Like, it just, as much as I enjoy them, it's such a time drain. A movie is like 2 hours, hour and a half at least. So that's so much time that you can be spending doing other things. And so maybe you can include that, cycle back into your do nothing time, but just recognize that things take up room. They really do. And maybe you're someone who has an exorbitant amount of space and you can just cram in anything you want. But I think that if I were to pay attention to many different things and try learning many different subjects that weren't beneficial to what I want to do, or maybe the core principles that I hold, I think it would slow me down, so that now I have to dig through, this People's Magazine or this this cookbook or this, whatever, to find the information that I want. Whereas since my mind is only focused on the things that I'm passionate about, or the things that I really want to continue on a journey of learning, then I don't have a problem. I can sit and talk to someone at length about things that I haven't read in 6 years, right? And I think that just comes from the focus and attention. And, maybe if you're someone whose sole purpose, the underlying principle of your life, is to be the most conversational individual that you know, then maybe that would be important to know like a tiny bit, at least a blurb about everything. And then that's just a different priority. But for me, like, I would rather have a generally broad spectrum of topics that I know a really good amount about, and then everything else is what it is, and it exists outside of my sphere of influence, and I can still like pay attention. I can watch a video on how baby glass eels are important to the agriculture and the economy of Spain, but I don't have to like store that information long term. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of it there. But the real purpose, or the real point here, is what is useful you decide. And that, again, just comes from knowing yourself and having a clear understanding of what you like, where you want to go in terms of your knowledge base, and what your goals are life-wise, right? Because if information is not taking you towards your goal, or at least or even is taking away from your goal, then it's useless to you. It is only detriment. It is a net negative in your book. So therefore, why interact with that information? Why do I need to read about Thomas the Tank lore for 7 hours on the internet, right? Or watch conspiracy videos online for 10 hours? If that stuff isn't really going to benefit me, maybe I can really get sucked into the rabbit hole, as it's so easy to do, but it's not adding. And so you have to spend a proportional amount of time given what you have decided is where you want to go and what you want to know. And, really broad concept, you have to work to texture the landscape of your mind so that it is what you want it to be, and design your psyche so that the ultimate level of character creation. Maybe you can absolutely design your outward appearance and your outward expression, but doing the inner work as well to really take care of what makes you informationally, down to every single level. Right? Cool. So moving on from there is willpower. Is where I want to go next. And this is learn to build willpower. And I think that this is really important, and something that I've had to dig back up. Moving here, I kind of got put in this survival state where I'm just like focusing on the now and how do I get to tomorrow kind of thing. And I haven't had time to rebuild my willpower. But in the past, I was an incredibly willful individual where, like, not only if I say something, I'm going to do it, but also just making things happen at an extraordinary level, like to something that would seem as though it's fiction. Just building such a willpower that the world kind of bends to you, and not in like a Thanos type way, maybe so, but just in a way that you have control over your life and where it's going, and your surroundings and whatnot. And you aren't that easily persuaded to fall into temptation that leads you down a hole of negative exercises, right? And in doing so, you earn your trust. You earn to trust. So this I think is kind of twofold. I think that I'm going to go two ways with this. One is the willpower to do and to honor your word to yourself and others, that what you say is going to happen no matter what. And then two is how it refers to, or how it pertains to, vices. And so both of these things, as you progress in building willpower, both avoiding vices and making things happen, you earn your own trust so that what happens up here that you care about and that you want to happen is going to be outwardly reflected in your results. And you know that what you say is going to happen. And that way you don't have this self-doubt of like, oh, I know if I buy cookies, I'm just going to eat them all in one night. That's just a drain on your energy. So instead of doing that, just build the discipline. I guess another word would be discipline. Build the discipline and willpower to buy those cookies because you enjoy them, but then have one every once in a while and then, take a break, right? And I think most of the things that I hear about, especially vices, because this is almost a completely different avenue, right? In terms of being sucked into doing things that you're not supposed to be doing or things that take away from your active goals. A lot of things that I hear is to reduce access to those things. What's that guy? Alex Becker, I think is his name, is someone I briefly had a stint where I watched some of his videos for like a week. And he was talking about how he just like has nothing in his house. The wokest, empty housest, billionaire, playboy, whatever. He has nothing in his house because that way the only thing there is his bed and his desk. And so he can only work because that's all he has access to. And I see the benefit there. I understand the point. But I feel like that's the easy road. Maybe sometimes, especially in the beginning of avoiding vices, it's easier to do that. Or, it's a better route to go that way because it's going to ensure adherence to what you want to happen. But at the same time, it just seems kind of pussy to me. Not saying Alex Becker's a pussy. I'm just saying that the concept of don't see him so that it doesn't bother you and it doesn't affect you and it doesn't taint your mind and your activities, it just seems like a weak way to go about it, when if you go down to the root, which is an issue of discipline, then you can kind of program your mind and trust yourself and learn to have the willpower and the determination to not indulge, right? And this can be with anything: food, alcohol, a lack of sleep, staying up on your phone, right? Too much screen time, too much short videos, not prioritizing learning, any of these things, calling off work, right? All of this stuff. So instead of that, maybe not instead of, but in addition to, I would say keep the things that you don't want around you so that you have to force yourself not to do it. And in doing so, it becomes less of a problem. It's like I've had, smoking in the past. In the beginning, I thought that it was much easier to just not buy any smokes, right? And that way they're just away from me. But then I found myself wanting it, and then I got to talk to myself about why I should or shouldn't go to the store and buy some, or I'm walking past the gas station, or driving past the gas station, and it's like, oh, I should just go in there. No, I shouldn't. And then it's this long internal dialogue of what to and not to do. And instead of that, just buy a pack, put it right where you can see it. So it's right here, right? And then just learn to control yourself. Learn self-control so that, you're out at a party and someone's like, hey, bro, you want one? You could just be like, no, I'm good, right? That's, I believe, more of the hard, easy approach, so that you're now going to the root of the problem, which is a discipline issue. Because, food isn't your problem. It is your inability to control your intake, right? Alcohol isn't your problem, right? It's your inability to stop yourself from drinking, right? Staying up on your phone isn't the problem. It is just a symptom of a greater disease. And instead of treating the symptoms with your little pills or whatever, go to the disease and really dissect how to make that less of a problem. And in this case, it is just build discipline and willpower. And then once you do that, I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't have any inkling to go and smoke. I don't have any inkling to go and drink or whatever, right? It's getting late, and then, I need to turn my phone off. Then you just do it. And so now it builds your trust in yourself so that you're not afraid. You don't live in this fear of succumbing to your animal instinct because you have it under control. And so I'm not advising you, if you have a real problem with a vice, whatever it may be, to do this. Because if you haven't built a discipline, then you're just going to indulge. But maybe at first, reduce it, and then build upon that and create a strong relationship with that vice so that you actually don't need it. Even if it's sitting right here in front of you, I can look at it all day long and I'm not even urged to take a bite or a sip or a drag, right? So that may be somewhat controversial, and I'm not sure that the message is getting across as well as I want it to, but I think if you really just take it down to hard, easy, solve problems at the root, not by the branches, then it's a way more bottom-up approach that makes way more sense, right? And is it hard? Yeah, duh, right? But what's harder? Doing this quickly and then building the habits of determination, willpower, and drive, or not doing this, kicking the can down the road, and then you maybe solve your bad relationship with nicotine addiction, but then now you have this still active process of overindulgence, and it just ports into some other behavior, and then you become addicted again to something else. Now you've just created another problem that you're going to have to spend another great amount of mental capacity to try and solve. Whereas if you just take that thing and set it down right in front of you, and then just sit there, right? Keep it in your house. Keep it right next to your bed. And then you just tell yourself not to do it. And every time you think about doing it, don't. And every single time that you say no, you won the battle, right? And then after so many battles, you win the war. And eventually I don't have any drive at all to go and smoke or drink or gamble or whatever, right? So, I'm curious to see what the response to that would be and if that would help. And I think that, again, do this responsibly. If you're shooting up or something, things have a different level of addictive capacity, right? So, maybe if my problem is my phone, then leaving it in the bedroom with me when I go to sleep and then building the willpower there is much different than leaving the needle on the table right in front of me. There's just different levels of addiction there. And so be responsible, be smart, have a plan, know what you want to do and why you want to do it, and don't get caught up in trying to build willpower when you haven't even developed the basic understanding of that. So baby steps, baby. You know what I'm saying? You gotta do this as a process, because if you don't have any willpower and you just constantly indulge in everything and you're all over the place, then don't expect yourself. Don't set this massive leap in standards and then fail to meet it. And now all you're doing is creating even more of a draw to that problem. And you're basically just this machine that churns out guilt. And now you don't trust yourself, you don't love yourself, and your confidence is low because you've just failed at something that you had no possibility of achieving to begin with. So start slow. Maybe take that thing out of your house, and then maybe leave it in the house but not in your room, and then maybe leave it in your room, and then now suddenly it's not a problem. And then you've earned your own trust and your own respect, which is the hardest to earn, right? And now you have even better capability of saying no in the future to anything that takes you from where you want to go. Nice. Okay. Yeah, I kind of went through all there. So, really pumping through these. This might be a short one. I love when I say that and then it's still 55 minutes long, right? But to go over all of our points here, or maybe I could throw another one in there. To go over all of our points here, schedule time to do nothing. Learn to basically fall in love with yourself in a way that you would another person, and learn your habits, know yourself, learn who you are, what you want, where you want to go, where you want to be, who you like spending time with, by spending the time with you, and just having a conversation, and this even comes from like I have, you get this internal dialogue or monologue, sometimes dialogue going on in your mind, and then sometimes I'll think something and then I'll just laugh at myself out loud. Like, dude, come on. Like some old lady walking the street and like, look at this fucking old bag over here. And then I'm like, hey, come on, dude. So that's kind of like interacting with yourself in a way that it's like another person. So that it builds this interest and this intrigue, and you can know who you are. And then next time you're outside, you don't get confused by people telling you who you are, because you already know. Right? Know yourself. It's like the Matrix, baby. That Oracle was on something over there, or onto something, maybe on something. But then we had learn to delete or avoid useless information that clogs up your machine. Learn to just stay away from indulging in information that is not going to help you and only takes your time and your power away. And this is a process that is, like any, can be lengthy, and you can chase it very far down the road to the point of any exclusion, right? But have the conversation with yourself and decide what your priorities are, and then decide to avoid or delete things that go against those priorities or interfere with those priorities. So there you have it. And then learning to build willpower, and don't just hide your problems. Deal with them and build your own respect and your own trust and your own willpower and determination and focus by keeping them right next to you and learning the self-control to not indulge, even though you want to so bad. Maybe if you don't want to eat any sweets, buy a pack of gummies or something, keep them on top of the fridge, and then look at them every time you walk by and say no. And then now, when you're out and someone has some gummies or some chocolate or some candy, or you're served a 3-course meal, and at the end they give you some nice dessert, you're like, it's okay. You know that you're not afraid of, I hope I don't go to this party and someone has this thing that I'm having a problem with, because you can say no. Even if they do, it's okay. And this, I guess, kind of doubles down on not letting your external environment dictate your actions and your beliefs and your progress, and instead learning to be in control of yourself and therefore the world around you. Maybe. Cool. I feel like I want to deviate a little bit here, because what is this, 37 minutes? I'm not sure I have anything to add here, but I guess we'll jump to life hack. Life hack, Nick's life hack. Observe your surroundings always. Just pay attention. Like really, and this is something that takes training and it takes practice, but learn to just observe how the world works around you, and learn to observe everything, so that when you, like, I don't lose things. Do not lose things, because I know where I put them, or I observed where they are. Oh, I need a paperclip. I need a bookmark. I need a pencil. Oh, okay, well, I saw one 6 weeks ago. Again, this kind of functions with the memory thing, right? I saw one 6 weeks ago, and I saw the tip poking out from under the couch. And so I'm in the living room, and I don't want to walk to the office. I know there's one right there, because I observed, right? And it's just situational awareness, so that, when I'm at the grocery store and I'm looking for something, I'm not big body taking up the whole freaking aisle, standing right in the middle so nobody can get past me. I'm aware of what is happening around me because I've observed, and I see that person coming down the aisle, and I preemptively can take 2 steps forward as they pass, and then I step back, and then I can go back to what I'm looking at without, taking myself away from what I'm doing, right? This kind of goes with the pattern recognition thing that I said earlier. Like, the more you learn to just pay attention to what's going on and really observe and internalize, the more it becomes second nature. So you just see. You just see. You don't have to try to see. You just see, right? You can go full Sherlock on this thing. I believe, obviously that character was based on real people or a real person. So these things are possible. It's not impossible to become to that level where you just notice things immediately. And the more that I've practiced with it, because this is something that I've been actively practicing for the majority of my life, like, you get pretty good. You get pretty good at just observing things and seeing how they work and seeing what's going on and seeing where things are and what is around you. And to put this in perspective of day-to-day life, my dad, ex-military guy, every time we'd go somewhere, he would position himself always so that he could see the exit, right? So now he knows who's coming in, who's going out, what's going on around him, right? And that's kind of this is learning, and it was just habit. It's just what he did. He'd even ask you to get up, and you got to go somewhere else. And now I've kind of developed the same habit, not to the same obsessive set that he has, but I still see benefit there in learning to put yourself in a position to observe where you are and at all times so that you're always aware. And I'm sure that, especially as you have children, this is going to be even more beneficial to where you just know what's going on all the time and you're not all over the place, right? You're not breaking things, you're not losing things because you observe where they are and you act accordingly, right? And then I also have a double down here on the Skyrim trait tree. So including observation as a trait and building, up your stats. And then you have your pattern recognition at some point. Build that stat, So I don't really want to get too into the weeds on that one, but just think about how much are you aware of your surroundings? And if not, then maybe that's something you can work on. And you can work on it. It's just practice. And since I have the time, I actually will expand on this. Reward yourself. This goes for anything, but reward yourself when you see yourself do it right? Because it's very easy to be like, dude, how did I not see that? How did I just trip over that thing? How did I not see that $100 bill that guy just picked up that I definitely walked over, right? You kick yourself as well, but also say you notice something that you've never noticed before and you see that's a step in the right direction. It may not be a big win, but it's at least a win. And reward yourself and say, hey, that's what we want. That's good. And I think that kind of builds this dynamic of where it's like Pavlov ringing the dinner bell, now your mind is trained to do that more because it is rewarded psychologically. And you're just doing it with yourself, right? So, observation, man, it's so key. It's so key. That so many things in my life I have or have had access to just because I notice things. And even dealing with people, just learning to really observe and just take in who they are, what they're doing, their mechanisms, their movements, their body language, learning about body language, their speech habits. You're just really observing everything about a person, and it just gives you such a deeper understanding of everything else around you. If I observe, man, it's really just hand in hand with pattern recognition. If I observe how water flows, then I can design my hydroponic system so that water flows the greatest because I see how it does it in nature, right? If I observe how animals interact with each other, then now, I don't know what you would do with that, but I'm sure you could find something, and then reward yourself accordingly. But that's kind of all I got, folks. We got a little shouty up in here, but that's not a bad thing. It's all right. I'm glad I can get back to it. It really is. It feels weird. You would think that the fact that I recorded so many videos and created so many outlines ahead of time, I would feel so productive, but it feels the opposite. Now, since I scheduled all these things so that basically this is working for me all the time, but I just feel like I'm not doing anything. So it feels good to get back. And I'd like to keep doing it as consistently. But I guess I kind of said that when I said that I was going to schedule videos and I was going to make outlines ahead of time. I was a little nervous about if it would be somewhat less genuine because it's not active. But all these things are still active that I think about and applicable nonetheless. So just remember, do nothing sometimes. Enjoy time by yourself. Learn to get rid of that BS that's in there, all the useless hoo-ha that's up there. And then learn to build your willpower. And as any skill does, all of these things stack. And you never know what you'll get somewhere else from doing these things here. You never know, right? And then just pay fucking attention to what's going on. Look around you, observe, see people. You're going to mess up a lot less. You're going to get hurt a lot less. You're not going to get, You see these shady characters, don't go that way, but observe. If I just got my head balls deep in my phone, then you don't see. So just see, right? Teach yourself to see. You got eyes, dog. Why don't you use them? So, all right, guys. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope that this week brings many advancements, and I hope that you not only advance, not only progress, not only are productive, but also you enjoy it. And just don't forget to enjoy the process. Really bathe in the current of where you're going, right? Cool. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you. If you haven't seen the podcast episode that I did with our first guest, check it out. Very excited about it. It was great. Had a good time. Can't wait to do it again. With that, Nick out.